Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode here. I'm off to the side of the camera for a reason. This is my latest vinyl haul video, so I'm working it so that this space is going to be where I basically show off my vinyl as I go through it. So this is more just a casual episode. I haven't prepared much besides stacking up all the vinyl I've gotten over the last several months, and I'm just going to talk off the cuff, so sorry if I get any information wrong or pronounce anything incorrectly. But it's just me going through the vinyl that I've gotten over this past several months. I kind of like doing this periodically to basically catalog everything new that I've gotten in my collection. So many of these are ones you've probably seen featured on the channel, either on my display on the wall behind me, or just albums that I've talked about over the past several months. And some might be little teases of what's to come and what I might be talking about in the future, especially in terms of some of the classic albums episodes that I do with Jana. And these are actually dating back all the way to September last year. So this is covering a longer period of time, but it's because towards the latter part of last year, I really slowed down my vinyl habits. I was trying to really rein it in because I felt like I was buying too much. And so the vinyl that I got over the course of the last few months of 2022 was pretty light, and I didn't feel like it would make enough of an episode on its own. But at the beginning of this year, I've really done a lot of vinyl buying. You know, I treated myself to quite an extensive amount just for my own personal reasons. You know, had some extra funds, and it was kind of a fun idea to do this. And they'll hopefully service the channel at some point in the future. So that's always a dual purpose being served here. So basically, I'm just going to show them off in the order that I received them. You know, these are all the different albums that I've gotten, and maybe a way to showcase some of my taste, what kind of music I like. Hopefully you'll be interested in some of these choices, and to just basically give a little bit of a retrospective of some of the albums that I've been talking about and that I've been excited for. So let's get into it. So back last year, I had to catch up and get this album, Black Midi's Hellfire. You know, I really enjoyed this album last year. It really stunned me because it's not typical of my taste, really. It's much more chaotic and crazy than I tend to like. It's more of that like King Crimson-esque avant-garde nature type stuff. Post-punk is what it's often described as, but I really like what they're doing. I really like seeing younger bands really being exploratory and really doing something adventurous, so I thought this was well worth picking up on vinyl because it was in my top 16. Part of my goal when I do my top 16 tournament albums, end of the year albums, is to try to get all of those top 16 in physical format throughout the year. So because this was on my list of top 16 for the year, I felt like I had to own it on vinyl. And it comes in this cool red color, which I thought really works well with the cover and such. So really great one. Next, basically these come on the heels of, I believe it was post my birthday, and I had a little bit of a budget to spend on a local record store, so I got a couple things there. So these two albums are ones I got around my birthday last year, a little bit later, but took a little bit of time to get to the record store. But first, I thought I'd get a classic one here, Caravans in the Land of Grey and Pink. I'm not too familiar with Canterbury style music, and I know this is one of like the big ones of the genre and really highly esteemed and well regarded, so I felt like a necessary purchase to the collection here. This is a pretty essential one, and it's a really cool version. I really like the cover, and I like this cool splattered gray and pink vinyl as well. It fits it very well, and it has two LPs to it, so there's quite a bit of stuff on board here. I believe the second part has some other stuff, like some bonus material and things. So a really cool album that I wanted to pick up. At that same trip, I also saw this, which Jordan Rudess is one of my favorite keyboardists. He's from Dream Theater, obviously. But this is a really cool album because it's The Road Home. It's his interpretations of a lot of prog classics, and it's one I always really loved and thought it was fascinating to find it in a record store, and so I had to pick it up. He does Dance on a Volcano, Sound Chaser, Just the Same, a piano medley with a bunch of great classics in it, Tarkus. It's really a great summary of progressive rock in Jordan Rudess's style with tons of great guests on it as well. So really love this album and thought it would be cool to have in my collection. And then, of course, I had to pick up David Longden's solo album, Door 1. This is his posthumous release. Unfortunately, he passed away a little over a year ago now, but this was an album that he had worked on before he passed, and he was mostly finished with, so they released it, and it's an incredible record. Really shows his heart and soul, and it's just a great collection of songs. Of course, he's the Big Train frontman, or was, and it's just an incredible tribute to him as an artist, and really an emotional listen, and just a really great fitting tribute to an incredible musician and artist. I really love this record and thought it was a standout release last year, so I had to have it on vinyl. Really great. And then I have a pair here of Flower Kings reissues. I've been a big fan of their reissue campaign. They've been working on this from last year into this year, and so I'm going to show off Space Revolver from the Flower Kings. Really one of my favorite Flower Kings records. I think it's a really stunning record. The whole I Am the Sun suite is just one of my favorite pieces of music that bookends the album. So this was a must-get for me. I'm really grateful for Royna Stolt and the Flower Kings for putting out these vinyl records and allowing me to complete a collection that I thought, oh, there's no way I'll ever get these classic Flower Kings records on vinyl, but here they are. It's just really fun. So there's going to be a couple of those, but the other one that came around the same time was The Rainmaker by the Flower Kings. Maybe a little less regarded by a lot of the fans, but actually a really great album with a lot of beautiful stuff on it, and definitely a must-have for me as a big Flower Kings enthusiast. I think this is a brilliant record, and I really, really love it. Love all the things that the Flower Kings come out with. So every reissue is going to be in my collection from this thing. With one notable exception, they came out with Unfold the Future, but I already had the previous vinyl version, so it felt like a little bit unnecessary to get another vinyl version of the same album, even though it had some newer stuff on it, some newer mixes, and was arranged a little bit differently in the format. But if I really want to hear the new mixes and stuff, I can hear that on streaming. But for the purposes of collecting, I try to just collect the one pure version of the album. And I'm not a big fan of collecting multiple copies of the same album. There might be exceptions with big albums, but for the most part, I just want the pure classic studio record. So here we go. Antamai by the Deer Hunter, one of my favorite records from last year. In fact, my favorite record from last year, I should say. This came in number 1 in my top 16 albums list, so of course I pre-ordered this on vinyl and had to have it. I know a lot of people haven't quite received their copy yet, so unfortunately there's been some delays in the manufacturing and stuff. It's been a little bit of a headache, I'm sure, for the band. But incredible record that I recommend heartily to anyone who loves adventurous music like I do. Maybe not your traditional progressive rock. Some people even question if they should be considered progressive rock at all, really. But to me, it doesn't matter what the label is. It's incredible music. They're extremely talented. Casey Crescenzo is just a genius, and I love everything he produces. So this is a brilliant record that I had to add to the collection. And then I've got some Beatles stuff here. I got the Revolver. This is like the new remakes that they did, so I wanted to have that. I contemplated getting the big old box set, and maybe I will at some point, but I just felt like it was a little prohibitive cost-wise for me, when really the main thing I want is to hear the new album, the pure studio album. So this is just the studio album itself, not all the bells and whistles that came in the deluxe edition package, but good enough for me. I love this mix. I love this album, and me and Janet did it recently on a Classic Albums episode, so check that out as well. It's just a really incredible sounding record, really ahead of its time, and just a really brilliant piece by the Beatles. Speaking of incredible albums by the Beatles, this was from Christmas last year. My dad actually got this for me. This is the White Album, of course, and this is the actual big box set of it. I put this on my wish list for Christmas as kind of a lark, because it was pretty expensive, and I'm like, there's no way, but I had to come up with something. So my dad saw it on the list, and my dad's a huge Beatles fanatic, and he's like, oh yeah, that's definitely what I'm going to get him. So really cool box set here with it has the pure Beatles White Album, and also the Escher demos is also included in this box. So a really cool set that I was really excited to get. And excited to check out. I haven't really listened to this yet, but I'm excited to check it out. So, and the other thing my dad got me, because he was stunned to see this on my list also, was Steely Dan, Can't Buy a Thrill. Seems like they're slowly rolling out some reissues, and so I wanted to get Can't Buy a Thrill. My dad was surprised because Steely Dan's one of his favorite bands, but we've never really talked much about them, so he didn't know I was also a fan. It's not one we really talked about when we were getting into prog. He assumes I'm just the prog guy, and I don't really care for non-prog music, but really love Steely Dan. I think they're an incredible band that just plays such a cool, pure form of this like jazz rock and just really sounds pristine and great production. This isn't really my absolute favorite from them. I like some of the records to follow a lot more, but if I want to get all of them as they come out, I thought this would be a good start. So here we are. Can't Buy a Thrill, a great record. Maybe a good candidate for like a classic albums episode with Jana. I'm sure she's never heard this before, so this is a really cool record. Now on to some that I kind of got myself over Christmas because they were ones that I had my eye on, and I decided to treat myself to a couple things. And so this is Pendragon and their Love Over Fear, the acoustic version. They had Love Over Fear was an album that came out a couple years ago. It was actually my favorite record of the year. It came out, I believe it was 2020. Really love that record. I love that the feel of it, and just has these positive vibes and really, really cool feel to it. And so I wanted to get the acoustic version, and I love this cover. So to have this cover, it's basically the same cover but done in a different color. The original one is more blue in color, and this is more of that purple feel, but really a beautiful piece of art, and I just thought this was a no-brainer to add to the collection. Just a really beautiful piece of art here that I really enjoy, and it's great acoustic versions of the songs from the album, and it kind of puts the album in a new light, so I think that's a fantastic part of this project. And just to show it off, even the inner sleeves are just really beautiful here. It comes in this really cool, like blue color vinyl. It's just a really cool package all the way across. And so I thought it was worth adding to the collection. Then, of course, which I think a lot of people picked up over the course of the last year, this is the Animals remakes from Pink Floyd. This is one my wife kind of insisted that I should pick up because it was one she had planned on getting for me for Christmas, and just didn't quite work out when she was ordering gifts and things. But, once the dust settled from Christmas, she said, oh yeah, I want you to have that, so go ahead and order it, kind of thing. So really great package, a great sounding version of the album, really classic, one of the best, classic albums of all time. So definitely happy to have this in the collection. Pink Floyd's Animals, the 2018 remakes version. Another one I had to play catch up on was the Von Hertzen Brothers, Red Alert and the Blue Forest. I got this one earlier this year because it was one of my top 16 albums of 2022, and I wanted to make sure to have all of them on physical media as much as possible. So this record's a little bit hard to find, at least from my perspective, but I was lucky to snag a version of it. It's really cool. It has like one LP is red and one is blue, kind of giving that Red Alert in the Blue Forest title. And I just really love this record. The cover maybe isn't my favorite. It's a little goofy. They're little photos and it's a little silly, but I really like the album itself, and I really think it's a beautiful product. I like the inside and the back cover as well. Some really pretty stuff there, but really fun listen, a folky album that really stood out to me and just got better and better throughout the year. So just to show it off a little bit, here's the red LP, and then here with some more kind of interesting band photos, you get the blue, a really cool, just clear blue. So really fun and a really great album that I recommend strongly to any that haven't quite heard it yet. I think it's one of the best releases of last year. Just a really, really incredible record. And then I've had this in my cart for quite some time. It was supposed to come out earlier last year, and then it got delayed and all of that kind of stuff. But finally, I got my copy of Gentle Giant's Civilian. Maybe not their most celebrated album, but I think it's better than people remember or realize. It's actually a really great album from them. It's their final album, their only real venture into like this almost 80s style sound in the very early 80s. I believe this came out in 1980. But they actually did pretty well with it, and I think they still are able to infuse their own quirky soundscape into the vibe on here. So I think it works pretty well, better than it worked on Giant for a Day or even The Missing Piece for me. But of course, that's personal preference. So I think this is an underrated album, and I'm a huge Gentle Giant fanatic, so I just want to complete my collection with this version, which, you know, a recently reissued version, just really cool. Now on to some new album, or a new album from this year. This is one that I talked about highly on the channel. You could check out my review of it. This is Riverside's Identity. Definitely had to have this on vinyl. I pre-ordered it as soon as it was available because of one of my favorite groups. And so it's just a must-have purchase, a beautiful package. Just a really incredible record that I strongly recommend to all prog fans. They dabble in that progressive metal type style, but I feel like they don't go over the top with the heaviness aspect. They're more in a heavier prog vein, but they have a lot of flavors and styles to them. And this album especially really showcases them in a very new and interesting light, with a bit of an 80s aesthetic, especially to Friend or Foe. So it's a really beautiful album. It'll definitely place on my top 16 of this year end, I'm sure, because it's been one of my favorite albums over the course of these first few months of the year. So really love it. Really had to have that one. Then another catch-up album from my 16 best albums from last year. Similar to Black Midi, this is Black Country New Road and their album Ants From Up There. Just a really cool, unique record. Not quite as chaotic and crazy as the Black Midi record, but still in that style. Bit more laid back with some interesting soundscapes, and they have a lot of different elements to their sound. Some horns, some violins, some different features, and really great storytelling and great songs. So really like this album. It really, once again, brought a new flavor into the typical music I like. Not quite the traditional prog like most of these other albums that I'm showing, but great music nonetheless, and really adventurous and creative stuff. So now back on that Flower Kings train and some of their reissues they've been doing. I've got Adam and Eve here by the Flower Kings, one of my favorites from them also. Had to have this, of course. It's a brilliant record. I remember it fondly. It was one of the first ones that was like brand new and one I was anticipating once I was already an established fan. So I really have high thoughts about it because of that, but it's just a really great symphonic prog modern record that I think every fan of the genre should listen to and experience. Just some incredible music there. And now I'm getting into the records I got most recently. I ordered a lot of these online. Like I said, I was able to splurge a little bit, and I just had a little bit of fun with it. A lot of these are ones I'm considering for upcoming like classic albums with Jana, so maybe a little bit of a sneak peek or a spoiler to some of the albums I'm considering to be featured on the channel. And a lot of these are still in their packaging. I haven't quite unwrapped and listened to these quite yet, so I have several that are still in their packaging and that I'm still working through to listen to. So I picked up this one. This is more of a personal choice. This is Incubus's Morning View. This is an album that I just really adore. It's one of the first true albums that I really fell in love with as a teenager when I was first getting into music. I was really into like the alternative rock scene, modern rock at the time, and I'd listen to songs here and there on the radio or whatever. Back in the Napster days, I'd download songs here and there in the style that I liked and make these like compilation mixtapes through things I either recorded on the radio or that I downloaded somehow. But this was the first time where I just decided to go for the whole record because I was liking all the songs that were coming from it and just really loved the whole thing as a whole piece. And so I feel like it's really the beginnings of me just liking albums, and so I felt like it was a must-have in the collection. So going through these a little bit quicker, Camel's Mirage I picked up. This is a great classic prog record that I think is somewhat of a must-have in a prog fans collection, so I definitely wanted to pick this up. I think it's incredible symphonic prog from the classic era. Getting into more of those classic albums, I was asking Jana, like, what would she be interested in doing on classic albums, because I want her input. I feel like sometimes I dictate too much of everything. And I'm like, is there anything you'd be interested in exploring? And she said, well, I really like Southern rock, was something she said. So I said, oh, let me look up what the best Southern rock is, and an album maybe both of us can really look into and appreciate. And this is what came up, Leonard Skynyrd. pronounced Leonard Skynyrd. This is a classic album. It has Freebird on it. So that's probably one we'll feature at some point, just to throw Jana a style that she really likes with this southern rock vibe. So that's really why I picked this up. Even though I'm not like a huge fan of Leonard Skynyrd as it stands, I like some of their songs, but I thought this would be fun to explore, and maybe it'll surprise me, some of the deeper album cuts, because I hear it's really great. A classic album that I think we'll feature soon-ish, Nirvana's Nevermind, just a classic grunge alternative 90s album that massively popular that everyone knows, so felt like I had to add that one in the mix. Just feels like a natural progression. We did Soundgarden, I believe, that we did last year. No, Pearl Jam. We did Pearl Jam last year, their album 10, so I thought this could be a good next step in that more grungy area. And then I picked this up because, first of all, I'd love to feature on the channel, but it's also a meaningful album to me. Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, just a classic. All of his 70s material, Stevie Wonder, is excellent. Maybe not the typical vibe I tend to go for on the channel. Usually I'm more rock-centric and prog-centric. This is more of that pop R&B type style, but I love this. I think this is fantastic stuff, and I'm really excited to delve into it with Jana. I haven't really told her yet that it's like a pretty long, sprawling double album, but we'll get into that when we cover it. So that's my hope, is that this will be a classic albums in the near future. And then also a candidate for a classic album feature, Kate Bush, Hounds of Love. This is from the 80s. Of course, Kate Bush kind of received some prominence this last year because of Stranger Things featuring Running Up That Hill, which is the first track from this album. And I've listened to this album, not the vinyl version, because you could see it's still like in its wrapping, but I've listened to the album itself because I have a lot of friends who really like Kate Bush and who really speak highly of her music. And this album really spoke to me. I thought it was excellent. And I don't tend to like most 80s stuff, so I'm trying slowly to build up a love for the 80s and some of the music that came out then, some of the more adventurous, artistic type statements. And so I thought this would be a great one and a good way to get a female artist in this classic albums list, where I feel like it's very male-centric, it tends to be. So, okay, getting back to some other things, some more of my typical prog-focused stuff. I got the live album from Transatlantic, The Final Flight, live at Olympia. Of course, as a transatlantic nerd, I had to have this one. And a lot of people have been kind of complaining about the packaging here because it's 4 LPs, and yet inside there's really only room for 2. It's just a typical gatefold, and so the other 2 LPs kind of have to sit in here. Either you have to cram them into this space, which doesn't really work, or you just leave them loose in there, which isn't great either. But, to get this amount of material and to support possibly my favorite band in existence and possibly their last major release, I believe they're going to come out with a Morse Fest set also later this year. So it's not quite the last release from Transatlantic, but they're teasing that it could very well be the end of the group. So this could be one of the last things that the band come out with. So I had to get this on vinyl for my collection, even if it's packaged kind of strange. And I also have the CD Blu-ray set as well because I wanted the visual performance on Blu-ray at the same time. So a little bit of double dipping isn't typical for me, but for Transatlantic and Neil Morse sled projects, that tends to happen. So that's the case on that one. Here's a pretty big set that I got. I've been waiting for quite some time for this. It's been a bit delayed, like a lot of vinyl lately. It was delayed and took a while to get here, but finally I got my box set of Aryon's Universal Migrator. This is parts 1 and 2. Aryan signed it on the bottom there. It's one of 1,000. I'm copy 943, so one of the later ends of that spectrum, but really cool box set that features both Universal Migrator Part 1, the Dream Sequencer, and Universal Migrator Part 2, Flight of the Migrator, where the first disc is more of the proggier side of the spectrum, and the second one is more of the metal side of the spectrum of what he does with Aryon. You get a bonus DVD with a 5.1 surround mix and some really cool extras, some music videos and making ofs. A lot of stuff in the box here. The 4 LPs are on marbled vinyl, which is really nice. Just a pretty expansive package. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just going through some of this. So you get like this cool, sorry, I'm all over the place, but you get this cool like comic book with it that's I thought was pretty neat, you know, something to read along while you listen to the album. Just a really cool piece there. Also, like I said, comes with that bonus DVD, which has like 5.1 mixes and a couple of making ofs and music video and things like that. So I'm happy it comes with that. A big old like poster it comes with. Comes with these like I think these are stickers, you know? Why not? You know, got some cool stuff there, some interesting characters. But then the real pièce de résistance here is the actual vinyl itself, which I actually haven't opened, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of open these and see that marbled vinyl effect. So here's this one that I'm going to open real quick. I'll edit it so it's not too long of a time. So yeah, so here we go. I just unwrapped it, and you get all the like guest stars and people on the inside there, the back cover, and then just to get into the vinyl itself, you get the lyric sheet in here, of course, and you get this cool marbled effect. This is really beautiful vinyl. It really matches the cover really well. It's just a great piece of work here. I'm really impressed with how this looks. So really beautiful. And so this is the part 2 vinyl. Really cool cover art, back cover there. Once again, all of the cast members essentially that are on this one. And then similarly, a really cool marbled vinyl. So just a really awesome set from Arion, from Artie and Lucasen. Just really beautiful and really happy with that. So it's always fun to get a cool like collector's edition version of something and to just unpack it and really get excited for it. So there's that one. All right, so a few more. I know this is running a bit long, so I'll speed through the last few ones here. I've been picking up the Tangent. They've been reissuing their stuff. Music on Vinyl has done some vinyl versions of their early records. This is A Place in the Queue, which I really love from them, so definitely had to pick this one up. Just classic symphonic prog from Andy Tillison and the crew, and this is one of their best albums in my opinion, along with their debut. Just incredible slices of great modern symphonic prog. Really recommend that one. Of course, I picked up, as part of that big group that I'm still covering, from that kind of splurge, this is Rush's Moving Pictures. I thought was worth picking up. Once again, I believe this is the new 50th anniversary version. It's not the big old box set, it's just the individual vinyl itself. I just want to hear it and want to have the classic album in my collection. So Rush's Moving Pictures. This is one I was thinking about featuring, maybe a little outside of my typical wheelhouse, but I got Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. This seemed to be the best choice for like the prog fan, because it's a concept album. It has a little bit of a prog influence, I think. But I'm not very familiar with it. I just thought it would be fun to feature like a classic metal album as a classic album on the show, because Jana tends to actually really like metal music, so I thought that could be an interesting direction. Even though we tend to pick more towards classic rock and things like that, I felt like this would be a fun diversion on a future episode. I also picked up Red by King Crimson. This is actually the 40th anniversary stereo mix from Steven Wilson and Robert Fripp, so this should be a good version. Still need to unpackage this one and give it a listen, but classic. I tried to pick up some real classics of progressive rock that were missing in my collection as of now, and I felt like this was a necessary one to include, so that's why that one is on the list here. And then I got Marillion's Holidays in Eden, and this is their more recent remakes, the 2022 version. And once again, it's just the vinyl itself. They came out with a big expansive package with like a live show on vinyl and all that kind of stuff, but I just decided to go with the single LP of just the album proper, because that's really what I care most about, is just the studio album itself and listening to the pure album in the best sonic quality. So that's what I got for that one. And then finally, just recently, I got in the mail my version of Haken's new album, Fauna, which I talked about quite extensively on the channel through a couple different videos. Really love this artwork. Just a brilliant cover. Even the inner artwork is just really brilliant. You could see it here, just this beautiful painting, all these different flowers and animals, and it's just a really beautiful cover all told. So I was really impressed with that, and it came really beautiful sky blue translucent style. You could see there, just really cool packaging, really cool record. One thing that I'm a little disappointed about is the recent Inside Out releases, both this one and the Riverside. Usually Inside Out slips in the CDs, so you're able to easily use those for a digital version, which I really appreciate, but these ones didn't have CDs with them, which I thought was an unfortunate thing. I hope it's not like a trend that continues. I think that would be unfortunate, but you know, you get what you pay for, and I love the vinyl versions as they stand, so nothing too much to complain about, just a little bit of a nitpick. But yeah, those are the vinyl that I got over the last several months, basically spanning from September 2022 into these first couple weeks of March in 2023, so a pretty big span, 5 months or so. That's what I've picked up. Ended up being a lot more than I expected, and there's some cool stuff in there, so I'd be very curious how you guys feel about my haul. Are there particular albums that you thought were really cool in this? What have you picked up recently? All of those questions. And thank you guys for sticking around this long. I know these videos tend to be a little bit long, but I hope you have fun with it. It's just meant to be casual and fun, and just a fun way to explore different records and music. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to catch you in a future episode. So thank you everybody so much. Bye everybody.